Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. I hope that you all are enjoying the season so far. And today we have another special guest. This brother was on my other podcast that I co-host, Black Smoke Barbecue Podcast. Without further ado, I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to my listeners.
My name is Lamar Jones. I'm the innovator of the Jank Gourmet Barbecue Sauce. I am a father. I'm a musician. I'm a published author. You know, all of those things that can't happen. You can't have Jank without those things. So what's happening?
Man, I appreciate you coming on. I didn't have the pleasure of interviewing you because I had some technical difficulties and it just wouldn't work out right. But reading about your story and just chopping up with you, because we had a chop it up session before we actually tried to record and just having a conversation. So really dope things about you that I was like, I need to have Lamar on the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast to just talk about what you have going on. I was first introduced to you by this Jank sauce. And brother, when I tell you, I'm not a big barbecue sauce person anymore, here and there. But when I had your Jank sauce, I had the original. When I tell you, and my wife loves it too, that, how we say that sauce is a fool.
Yeah.
I mean, man, hey, I was telling everybody about it. I was like, man, you don't have to do anything extra to it. Just pour it straight up out the bottle. I mean, of course, some people like to heat up their barbecue sauce. It's your preference, but you don't have to add any other ingredients to it. So how did you get started with that?
Man, well, first off, man, thank you for the invite, man. To the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. You know what I mean? Appreciate you having me. To get into that story, how I made it, I grew up so take it back. I'm originally from Camden, New Jersey.
Okay.
But I grew up down in South Florida, Hollywood and Miami. I spent a lot of my summers in New Jersey. So I'm on, the streets of Philly and Camden, New Jersey. So there's a certain type of cuisine that you get up there. You talk about your strombolis and panzerotti and all that type of stuff, your Philly cheesesteaks. But then you get down to South Florida, which is where I spend most of my, life. I grew up in a part of in Miami called Little Haiti, Miami. So a lot of, if you're not familiar with Little Haiti, Miami, there's a heavy, Haitian population in Little Haiti, Miami, which hence the name, right? So I get a chance to kind of experience that cuisine. Then I also go to school with a bunch of, different ethnic groups, right? So you're talking about Jamaican food, you're talking about Cuban food, you're talking about Indian food, just about any type of cuisine that you can think of is at your fingertips. Other thing that contributed to even the idea of wanting to create a sauce is my godmother, Miss Sharon Weiss. God rest her soul, man. She cooked all the time. And then I grew up around women that cooked. So I was in the kitchen. I'm trying to see what's happening.
Right.
Eat, so that definitely molded my palate, if you will, at a younger age. So when I moved to South Texas, Rio Grande Valley, which is where I'm at now, I needed something that reminded me of home. Down here in the Rio Grande Valley, at least 16 years ago, there was nothing but a lot of great Mexican restaurants, or you had a place called Whataburger. You know what I'm saying? Which I had never had until I moved here, actually. So I did a lot of Whataburger. I did a lot of great Mexican food and breakfast tacos and everything else you can think of. But I still needed something to remind me of home. So anytime I bought sauce from the store, to put something, on some of the food that I was eating, whether it was a burger or whatnot, I always had to put something in it. I don't care what it is. You know,
Yeah.
you mentioned it a little earlier in our conversation. Most of the time you buy a sauce, you're gonna have to put something in it. So I was just trying to, do that. I end up taking that stuff, to a couple cookouts, things of that nature, and friends and family start saying, "Hey man, this is pretty good. What you doing with this?" So now I'm thinking to myself, man, what if I never ran a business before? Definitely never ran a food business or did a food product before. The biggest thing or the closest thing to being a business was slinging CDs out the back of my trunk as a musician. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was my closest run in with entrepreneurship prior to starting this thing. So the answer to the question, what made me start it was just the idea that people actually enjoyed it, and I start thinking, man, this could probably actually be a possibility. It ain't out there, so somebody wants.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Man, I gotta tell you again, man. I'm just man, that sauce, man, that's something
And then,
special.
and
Um,
so what you're getting, man, is literally just that's just what I like to eat. It just so happened that a few other people say, hey, man, you got you something.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you listened. I'm glad. Now, now you spoke briefly about you know, selling CDs.
Yeah,
Man, I didn't know you could sing
appreciate you, man.
until this is well after I got the Jank sauce. And, I follow you on Instagram. And I was just scrolling through. I saw you with a microphone or whatever. You were at a game and, you started singing the national anthem. I shared that too, just like I did the barbecue sauce. Cause I got a cousin that sings. My wife sings. I said, man, y'all got to look at this. My
Yeah,
wife was like, that's Jank? I said,
yeah.
yes, yes, it is. Man, how did you get started singing and how did you go from barbecue sauce one day, singing the next? How does that work out?
Great question, man. So the music has always been the first love. And how do 99.9% of us start singing in the church
Church?
choir? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So grandma, growing up with grandma, man, she made me go to church. At a young age. And
Yeah.
at that age though, uh, I, started singing in the choir. Obviously, as you get a little older, you start to understand the importance of, a relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that transition kind of happened. But I've always sang in the church choir. I didn't do my first talent show until I was about 16. So performing outside of the church didn't really happen until I was in high school.
Wow.
And that was just because I never really, thought that it was. I never really thought it was good enough, coming up.
Yeah.
I would always try to imitate, folks on the radio. I listened to a lot of Jagged Edge, you know what I mean? Brian McKnight, Drew
Yeah.
Hill. I'm dating myself a little bit, but that's, that I tried to imitate those fellas on the radio. And one or two times, Drew Hill was another big one. A few times I start singing some of that stuff on the radio. I'm like, man, I almost sound like them, man. so so now, so getting into high school, I
Yeah.
I I let some friends talk me into getting into a talent show. We ended up starting a group, and the song that we did was a song by a dude named I want to say his name was Uncle Sam. And it was the song like I don't ever want to see you again.
Yeah.
So we, you know what I'm saying? We did that song, and when I tell you the crowd reaction at a high school talent show, my first time ever really performing outside of the church choir, that reaction, man, that got me hooked. And didn't take me long. I was 17, so about a year later, maybe a little less than a year later, I say, you know what? Music is gonna be my thing. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know, I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not trained, you know what I'm saying? This is just church choir. No classical training, anything in music, but I just know what I like to hear and I know what I like to sing, and that's kind of where the music side started. So music came way before barbecue sauce. What ended up happening is barbecue sauce kind of took off a little faster than music did.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
So
that food is universal, man. With music, you gotta have a specific audience and
you gotta give. You say, you told me you're a poet, man. So you know how it is going to open mics. 5, 6,
yeah.
7 nights a week. Just trying to get out there and build your audience and build your following. So I did that. I did all of that, and I've had some pretty decent success. I've had some pretty dope things happen in my music career along the way. But that's where it all started, and then barbecue sauce. So now you run into people that only know me for barbecue sauce, and then some people that know me from back in the day find out later that, oh, you do barbecue sauce too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, and that's really how it all kind of came together, man. So what seems like a seamless transition from one to the other is just I put a lot of work into one, stumbled upon the other one that happened to be, pretty good.
Yeah.
So so it might seem like that, but there's a lot of work in there, man.
And I notice at the root of them both is just giving people what they want
Yeah,
and doing things that you like. And I can appreciate that. A lot of times people, you see them get into like business and doing entrepreneurial stuff and they don't really have the passion behind it. Like I make a mean peach cobbler, right?
yeah, but
And I
I
used
gotta get in on that now. You
hey,
hold on me.
I used to take it to like work functions and stuff and like do it for my family. And everybody was like, oh, you should do this, you should sell it. But like, I just did it because, it was something that I knew how to do, but the passion wasn't there.
Yeah,
And I was like, I can't see myself, trying to do this and trying to sell it when it's not, the passion's not there.
yeah,
It almost felt like a requirement because how I got started, my mother makes a way better one than me. And it was like one Thanksgiving, she couldn't make it. So she asked me to do it. And I was like, okay. And she told me how to do it. And then everybody loved it. And it was like, oh, well, you know how to do it now. So, and I'm like, yours
you,
just tastes so much better. Yeah. But I don't have the passion behind it. And as a matter of fact, I hadn't made it in a long time. But I couldn't see myself, just jumping off into that venture. And it's like the passion wasn't there.
you touching on something. That like you say, that's important, man. The passion is important. I was blessed enough coming up on the poetry scene uh, to have a guy named Will the Real Bell. He's passed on. God rest his soul. He was he's a very prolific poet who had accomplished a lot of stuff. Even at the time I had started, hitting that scene, been on Def Poetry, all of these type of things way back when.
Yeah.
He took me under his wing and kind of molded me in on that scene and kind of gave me pointers on how to navigate that system, right? That scenery. And that was one of those things that without that, then I don't, start to develop the way that I did in music and the poetry scene. I don't build the same following. A cosign from him was like if he co-signing for you, it's like okay, he must be all right. He got something.
Yeah.
He was dope. I'm talking about on a whole nother level, right? And he's taken a lot of people under his wing before he transitioned. But it's all those things working together. The passion, definitely having some people around you to kind of guide you in the right direction. That was definitely important in that realm too.
Yeah, that that is major because I remember I got a recommendation from the poet laureate in Charleston to do a poetry reading, and it shocked me that he even mentioned me and my name, and I was like, oh wow, well I appreciate that,
Yeah,
and I think before that he was like, yeah man, no problem, and it was just that just to have him think of me to be somebody that could be on there. And then recently I did a event Baldwin celebration, and I'm trying to have Curtis on here, but he reached out to me, wanted me to be a part of the event, wanted me to get some other poets. I got them on, and it was a success. And just the fact that I had made a connection with him probably like a year before that, and I was at like a podcasting, I think it was like a podcasting class or something. But I just felt that push to introduce myself to him. For one, I love film, but I didn't know how or whatever, but I just felt that push to go introduce myself to him, and we chopped it up a little bit or whatever. Didn't see him until months and months later. My wife was at an event. She makes earrings, and so she was selling them, and he came to the table, and I was like, it's good to see you again. And we started talking. He was like, oh yeah. And we just started talking again. And then a couple months later, he hit me up and was like, he's doing an event. We'd like to have some poets. And I was like, wow.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, see, and I don't believe anything happens by chance.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in something called quantum entanglement, right? And it's crazy because the way I even start like really tapping into that and even, thinking about that was I met a guy in the airport one time, uh older gentleman. He's like an Iron Man. Uh his name is not coming to me right now. Well, anyway, we start talking, and he start talking. He was a scientist, physicist, and all this other stuff. And we start talking in the airport. I just happened to have on, something that had, matter of fact, this logo on it, like big on my chest. And
Yeah.
he walks up to me, and says, what is that? And we start having, and Lou Hollander is his name. There you go.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Are you familiar with this
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Lou literally kind of walks up to me, man. What is that on your chest? And we start talking about the jank, right? He's on his way down to Mexico. I'm on my way. We were coming back home to the valley. So anyway, we start having that conversation. I'm asking him, how do you do, the stuff that you do? If you could go back and talk to your, you know, 39-year-old self, what would you tell you? You know, all
Yeah.
of those questions, man. And quantum entanglement came into the, conversation. And I was really excited to meet him because my cousin Malik, he's also he's a physicist, right? Uh, you wouldn't know it, by looking at him. He tried to hide that genius for a long time. But I
Yeah.
was like, man, my cousin would have loved to meet you because, because y'all speak the same language.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, we had that conversation. I talked to him, and I brought him up because the quantum entanglement and nothing happening by chance. The me coming up the way that I did, the music, growing up around the food, all of these things, meeting Will the real one and him taking me under his wing, me being a musician, there's a there's a passion that you have to have being a poet or a musician. And
Yeah.
you hit it right on the head when you said, bringing the people into you. That was one of the things that Will told me. He was like, man, you're not up there, to perform for them. You want to bring them into your world, right?
Yep.
So on that level, when I started doing the barbecue sauce, it was like, okay, nobody's doing what we're doing, right? No, I haven't heard a barbecue sauce or seen one that had like its own jingle and things like that. So I'm already thinking to myself, if I'm gonna go out here and I'm actually gonna pursue this thing, I need to be different. How can
Right.
I incorporate this music into what I'm doing with this barbecue sauce? So every opportunity I get, I'm trying to marry the two. Well, not necessarily marry the two, because there you can't have one without the other. So being able to put it together in such a way that it tells the entire story versus I'm only a musician or I'm only the barbecue sauce guy. So it all ties in, man. It all makes sense when you put it all together. So you can't have one without the other.
That's a very good point. Cause cause when I started like sharing my barbecue stuff, like I struggle with, I was like, I don't want to add this to my poetry and my podcast stuff because it's different, but at the same time it's not, because both are who I am. I have a strong passion for food and barbecue, and I have a strong passion for poetry, the written word, even developing a real big love for spoken word.
Indeed.
Really, really, really starting to dig that, man.
So I came up on spoken word.
Yeah.
That's what we did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and see, that wasn't my thing because, and I think I might have put too much pressure on myself because I used to love Def Poetry Jam, man. I mean, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get up there and do all that, but I said you might get a little bit emotion out of me, but man, I was like, man, these brothers and sisters are really giving it, man.
Yeah.
But last season I had a couple of, and see, like you saying, things just don't happen. I had a couple of spoken word artists on last season during Poetry Month, and just talking to them,
Like
they
that
just
fire.
started to get, yeah, man. It was just, I mean, it was like, man, there's nothing to it. Just, practice with some people, go to a couple of open mics, and don't just read, but just like perform and check out some slam poetry events and things like that. And I mean, hey, I was like, well, hey, I'm getting into it, man. So we'll see.
It's a process, right? I didn't write my first spoken word poem until I was on that scene for probably some years because
Oh yeah,
I seen so many greats do it.
yeah.
And it's like, man, I can't sit up here and play around with this. You know what I'm
See,
saying?
yeah,
This is people's. I know poets that was doing poetry full time as a career. You know,
you're
so,
right.
and Will being one of those people. You know, he had probably the longest running spot called Literary Cafe down in Miami. Ran it
Okay,
for years. If you look up Literary Cafe in Miami, guarantee you that'll pop up. So I've seen some some dope. I know some dope poets, man. Couple people stand out to me. There's one too. Have you seen the movie Queen and Slim?
oh yeah, yeah,
All right, so the snitch.
yeah.
So his name is Bertrand Boy. That's my brother from another mother.
Wow.
He is like the protege of Will the Real One. So when I tell you I came up around
Yeah,
like people really doing it, that's who I got a chance to kind of bump elbows with like night after night. People like really doing it. So anything you did when I came in there to do music and everybody's doing poetry, you know what I'm saying? You
yeah.
you, you got to bring it. Ain't no half stepping because they wasn't gonna sugarcoat it.
Right.
If they wasn't rocking with you, they wasn't rocking with you. But it molds you though. You know what I'm saying? It definitely molds you. It makes you have to bring a certain level of professionalism when you step into a room like
Yeah,
that. And I know many, on that level. So yeah, man, you gotta have that passion. You gotta be in it. You can't be half stepping. If not, it doesn't work. And I think that from my music background and coming up that way, I think that translates into what I do with the barbecue sauce.
yeah, yeah. I I can definitely tell you that from somebody who's tasted it. It definitely translate into, and I'm not just saying that's because you're on the show, man. I mean, this is
Maybe it's because it got some brown sugar in it.
maybe, but that is some good, man. I'm telling you, man, that is some good stuff, man. You also introduced a diabetic friendly version of the sauce. How did that idea get started? And like, was it a conversation you had, or
Great question. So going back to something else you said about giving the people what they want, right? So my mother's diabetic, my grandmother's diabetic. But when I started doing the barbecue sauce, and I still do farmers markets from time to time. Doing farmers markets, you run into people that will come by your table and say, "Ah, this is good, but do you have anything without sugar in it?"
yeah,
For me, I have to hear it enough before I start to entertain, another flavor or something different. Because at the time I was I only had an original and a spice. Since then, I've gone on to do the habanero, the diabetic friendly goodness, and then I also have one that's a smoke. So I know that's fairly new, but that was a partnership with, University of Texas Rio Grande Valley (UTRGV). So we got the vaquero sauce. That's something, new that we just launched. Uh,
Okay.
so with just like anything, listening to the people, I hear it enough, maybe for about a year or so before I started to entertain the idea of actually creating something, that was diabetic and keto friendly. That again, because I didn't want to start working on something that there wasn't a real demand for.
Right.
So now it kind of backfired. Well, it didn't backfire. I created. It took me some time to create, the diabetic friendly, because I said the first goal was if I wouldn't metric, or the first metric was if I wouldn't eat it, I wasn't gonna put it out. So I say for me, it gotta be good to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Whatever it is, gotta be good. If I don't like it, I ain't put my name. So I take some time, I get that done, and then I launch it in 2020, February of 2020, right? So
Right.
right before everything shut down in
Yeah.
March,
Yeah.
I'm launching a new product, so I don't get a chance to really get out and push the product and get some awareness behind it. But thank God, at this point, the Jank did have somewhat of a space in the market in terms of people kind of were familiar with the brand and what it was. So I think 99% of that was people that just said, it's the Jank, so I'm gonna try it, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out that it was good, so it had some staying power. And right now that's become one of the fan favorites, because it's just that good, and you really don't know if I don't say to you, hey, this is diabetic friendly, or this is no sugar, right? You don't really know, because I'm also not using any artificial sugars in it. This is it's monk fruit, which is just a natural fruit. There's a nice balance of it. It's a completely different flavor profile from the other sauces because it doesn't have the brown sugar and honey and molasses. Uh, but across the board, the whole idea is the jank is an easy way to add delicious flavor to any meal, and that's with anything that you use, whether it's the sauce or the all-purpose seasoning.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the seasoning, that
Mhm.
combination
Yeah,
is crazy too.
appreciate it.
Man, hey. Matter of fact, I'm low, and after we get off this, I might have to put me another order in there because I'm making myself hungry too, just thinking about it. Something else I wanted to talk about, Jank Nation. For my listeners, what is Jank Nation and how did you come up with that?
Awesome, man. Great question. So, Jank Nation started out as anybody that was a fan of the Jank, anybody that gave me any kind of props for creating something, and they genuinely like the product, love the product. I was like, okay, well, you're part of the Jank Nation. What the Jank Nation has transitioned to, or has evolved to, is it's a nonprofit now. So the nonprofit Jank Nation focuses on entrepreneurship and financial literacy. We also have a scholarship with Jank Nation that I do for graduate seniors here in the city that I live in, and it has also evolved into, unfortunately, my cousin, God rest his soul, Christopher B. Kendall. He passed away, dealt with some mental illness and things like that, and had a tragic accident.
Yeah.
Didn't take his own life, but mental health was an issue, medication, things of that nature. So he passed away, I want to say in 2022. What I did after he passed away, because and I'll explain why he's important to this whole thing, the Jank and everything. So now the scholarship is called the Jank Nation Christopher B. Kendall Memorial Scholarship. So that will live on forever. But if you've ever taken a look at, I have a jingle for the barbecue sauce, and there's an animated commercial or animated cartoon that goes along with me singing the jingle.
Yeah.
He animated that cartoon, and he's done some other things for me. But he was about 16 or 7. He was about 17 years old when he did that for me.
Wow.
He
Yeah.
was 22 when he passed away. Um, So that was a very integral part to going back to me saying, how can I make this thing different? I didn't see anybody doing any of that. Things
Yeah.
not happening by chance. He's my family. He is my cousin by marriage, right? Because his dad married my cousin, so that's how we became family. But he was just very talented. I'm talking about genius type talented and smart like that, and happened to love animation. I can remember looking at one of his very first animations, and I was like, dude, you doing this? He was like 15, 16. I'm like, man, when I get an idea, I'm gonna I want you to do some stuff for me. So when the time came, I gave him, the idea. This is what I want to see. All of those characters in there are likenesses of
Yeah.
people that are around me, with the exception of the one dude in the video who's kind of like looking over. He's like the outcast. He's from another thing that he animated for me. But uh, that's how the Jank Nation has evolved to what it is, and we've been able to. The plan is to continue to kind of grow that. Eventually, I want to be able to send people to school on like a full scholarship type thing. So
Yeah.
when you talk about having a product, but also having a responsibility because it's a business, right? And standing behind my product and standing behind what we do and wanting to give back on the grander scale. I'm only able to do what I do because I have some type of movement with the product, so I'm able to do that. Even though I was doing the scholarships a little bit before, the jank has definitely allowed me to do it a little bit, further, on a slightly grander scale. But I'm looking. I'm a big dreamer, man. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to really do this thing, and that's kind of where we are with the old Jank Nation.
Man, how first of all, thank you for giving back because a lot of times we see people out there doing things, major things, and it's no looking back. It's no trying to motivate the youth, trying to inspire the youth, trying to show them something different
Yep.
than what they see on TV or maybe what they see in their own neighborhoods. I really appreciate the financial literacy part because that's something some of us aren't exposed to in school. Probably not until like 12th grade, if then,
If then,
and
right?
then probably college if you do go to college, that sort of thing. So I really appreciate that, man. I want to thank you for that and just
Yeah.
being that beacon of light and saying, I'm an entrepreneur and this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give back. And I'm pretty sure being an entrepreneur, like you have a lot of life lessons as well. It's not just like somebody, just speaking straight from a book, but you got some experience as
Yeah.
an entrepreneur, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows.
That's a drive. Like so you see things happen, you experience things, and then you run into people. So one of my biggest pet peeves or the things that bothered me the most as an entrepreneur trying to start this thing off and get it off the ground was there wasn't really many people that I could talk to that could give me some type of guidance on what I was trying to accomplish. And when you did come across, one or two people that may have some information, they wasn't really forthcoming with the information.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
so what's big for me is I say if I can and I'm able to share any information, any insight, you know, put anybody on game, whether it's financial, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's life. And because I'm around kids a lot, I still work in a high school. So I've been working around kids since about 2003 in the school system. That, them having access, them seeing, oh, I've just seen him on, TV, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
I watch his YouTube videos. I might even be listening to his album. I done seen him perform, right? But he's here, and I can and he's accessible. I can talk to him. I can literally touch somebody. His product is on the shelf in the store, not
Yeah.
just a store. HEB biggest, you know what I'm saying? One of the biggest grocery store in Texas.
Yep.
So for them to be able to see that and touch it and be able to say, hey, you know what? Very cliche, but if he can do it, anybody can do it type thing. Uh, I enjoy that part of it the most. Just being, able to kind of share that insight, man, with folks, and whether it's kids, young adults, whoever. If I can do it, then I'm all the way with it.
Man, representation is important because sad to say I didn't realize this until, man, probably like a couple of years ago. I don't know how the conversation started, but I realized that I didn't have any black male teachers until I got to college.
Yeah,
And I was like, I wonder, would that have affected my decision to become a teacher or not? Because I grew up in a family of educators. Mother was a teacher, aunts, uncles, grandma, she was a social worker. And matter of fact, I took teacher cadets in high school, but I wanted to be an engineer, ended up going to college, and man, that's a long story. But long story short, I switched my major from physics/engineering to just physics,
okay.
because I wanted to get out. I didn't want to do a whole bunch of. I was like, just give me my 4 years and let me be out. But I wondered if I had that representation, would it have affected my decision? Because I had an uncle that was trying to get me, to be a teacher and that sort of thing, and that is something that I didn't want to do, but I know the passion was always there.
Yeah.
Because even when I was in college, I tutored kids.
Mm,
And, being in teacher cadets was something that I enjoyed doing. So the passion was there, but I just didn't, for whatever reason, I just didn't want to do it. But that is something that I know the passion would have always been there. And even me now looking and doing some things with youth and trying to get with some people and trying to figure out what I can do, with like maybe like some type of writing, workshop or something like that. Just having these thoughts playing in my mind now, I'm just like, I know the passion would have been there. But I really think that if I had had that teacher at any point, I probably would have been like, you know what? Because even I joke about this all the time. Even like even though I had people in my family that went to college and stuff, the driving thing for me that made it really look cool was I saw my uncle graduate when I was little. I saw him graduate from South Carolina State College then. It wasn't university, it was college then. And watching a different world. And
yeah.
those things, yeah, it was just like, and I was like, I gotta go to HBCU no matter what. Yeah, because I thought I could go to Hillman, but I found out that wasn't real, and I was like, man, I was like, I was like, I'm going to HBCU somewhere.
Man, and man, don't just gloss over that whole physics degree situation either, man. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
real. So you know exactly what I'm talking about when you know what I mean when I will meet that dude. And my cousin, his degree is in theoretical physics.
Okay. Okay.
So numbers is like easy to him. He
Yeah, math and
man,
science was my thing. Yeah.
that's his thing. He's been a civil engineer. He done designed parts of bridges in Florida. He done did a lot of stuff. Excelled in sports. You know what I mean? He tells me the story. Of him getting getting to uh accepted to be in the Olympics one year.
Wow.
But it was a decision between I think Olympics and school or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And he chose school. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Because that's where his passion, his passion
Yeah.
good at. So he just excelled at stuff, man. Uh, so yeah, that's it's crazy, man. That's kind of how things pan out and how they work.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I couldn't stand physics, and I think it back to the teacher. I had a teacher. I think it was just her that why I didn't like physics in high school. But it just so happened that when I got to college, I went to Benedict College, and they had a dual degree program where I could do 3 years for physics there and then 2 years somewhere else and graduate with 2 degrees. Schedule kept getting messed up, and I would have ended up being there 4 years and then 2 years somewhere else. And I was just like, I'm gonna be honest, I was tired of school, man. I was like, I got to get out of here in 4 years.
I hear you, man. I did. So I told myself in high school that I wasn't going. I did not like being in school, man. I did just
Yeah.
the worst piece of information I could have ever got in school because I was in I was in honors classes. Back then, we didn't have the dual enrollment. We had honors classes.
Yeah.
And what happened was our classes were weighted a little different. So if I got a B in the class, it was weighted as an A, so on and so forth. If I got a C, it was weighted as a B. I don't know how I got that information, but worst piece of information I could have ever got because what I did once I found that out was, oh, I get straight C's. It's gonna be weighted as a B anyway. I ain't gotta do nothing in class. I can get
Yeah.
right easy. I can do this. Right? Homework. I ain't doing no homework. For what? I'm gonna do everything I need to do in class. I'm gonna pay attention. I'm gonna do decent on the test. I ain't gonna take a few tests because I know I got a B average. You know what I'm saying? I can stand to lose 50 points and still be good. Worst piece of information I could have ever got. Towards the end of my senior year, I say, you know what? I'm gonna have to do something. I need to go somewhere. And the only thing that I knew that I wanted to do was design, houses was the only thing I was really interested in. So
Yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah,
design. I ended up going to ITT Tech right out of high school. I I almost didn't finish that. Got to my last semester and I was like, man, I'm tired of going to school. And I literally stopped going and went back to working my, telemarketing job, which was what I was doing at the time, making decent money, maybe about $300 or $400 a week, just coming out of, high school.
yeah,
So
yeah.
okay, doing all right, got my little car.
Right?
And then I was there, 10 o'clock at night one night, and I'm like, dude, I can't keep doing this, man. Go ahead, go back to school. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, finish that thing up, stop playing. So I end up going back to school. I get my, associate's degree in CAD drafting and architecture. That was what I, got my degree in. I couldn't get a job in that
Yeah.
field because everybody that I went to was like, oh, we need you to have 2, 3 years experience.
Yep.
So I'm like, well, where you want me to get it from? I'm just getting out of school. My portfolio looked good. My
Yep.
grades is decent. You know what I'm saying? So where I'm supposed to get it? So I ended up working some odd jobs. I did, I was a ceiling mechanic for some time, doing grid and tiles and all of that. I worked at a car wash company where I was designing parking lots and uh, putting in those car washes depending on which model and whatnot based on the layout of the land. I did some quality control, read blueprints at a cable company, but again, it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I spoke to a mother in the church that I grew up in who was a retired teacher. Asked me one Sunday after church, had I ever thought about being a substitute teacher? And that's where the school system came into play. I start looking into that. I become a substitute teacher 2003, and I get a summer off. And it's my first time ever having a summer off.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't getting paid, but I had that trunk full of CDs. So I was all right. I'm still performing.
Right.
Bang. So so I do that and I get that first summer off. And after I had that first summer off, I could not go back to working a regular job. I was like, ain't no way I'm gonna give up, 2 almost 3 months every year vacation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whatever I gotta do during the summer, I'll find me a little job, to get if I need to, but I ain't going back to no regular, job, period. And that was 2003. And here we go,
Yeah.
2024, and I'm still, in school. So yeah, man, it's easy to get hooked to it, man. And then you get in and you see the impact, the
Yeah.
impact,
That's it.
back then, 20, I'm 22, 23, um, gold teeth, because I grew up in Miami. I
Yeah.
got my grill, uh, cornrows, the whole nine. And
Yeah.
but I'm coming in the classroom with a suit, you know what I'm saying, gold teeth. You know what I mean? So they can relate, and that definitely helped me in that arena. being able to, relate with the kids and them understand that, hey, act crazy if you want to. I'm from exactly where you from.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you might do that some of these other ones in here, but yeah, okay, we on the same page. So, but that also that, and then it was a respect factor. I was never, one of those teachers or people in general that talk down to the kids, right? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I treated you like I wanted you to treat me, and they saw that, and then I kind of got a reputation of, oh, this substitute can manage a classroom. So then I was booked, months in advance, um, during the school year because people would say, hey, I want him in my classroom, and that's kind of how that kind of rolled over. That's what actually turned into my first, mentoring program. And this is kind of going back to something you said earlier about trying to figure out how to work with the kids and the youth. So we did something, me and my buddy Sean Elliott. Me and him I started a program, he started a program. We ended up merging our programs. We were we would take kids through the recording process, the writing, recording, creative process, sometimes an 8-week program, to where we would help them create, whether it was a spoken word piece, whether it was a song, whether they wanted to collaborate, whether they were dancing. We hired somebody to, come in and teach dance. One of the young ladies that we met that was a student. And at the end of the 8 weeks, we would put a show on. We would do a talent show. And
Okay.
these kids that have never performed or never spoken in front of people would get on stage and perform, right? And this was such a huge transition, and cool to see, because you come across these timid kids that are afraid to speak to you, let alone get on stage and pour their heart out to you
Right.
from
Yeah.
from a real place. You know what I'm saying? So that was something that we did for a long time, and until, we kind of went our separate ways in terms of, the program kind of grew apart, pandemic, all of that stuff, and that,
Yeah.
never kind of came back the way that it was. For me, business started taking off, so I didn't have as much time to do that. So all of those things, and just idea. If that's something that you're looking at, there's programs out there, and my advice would be, if you haven't already, start small. It might be one or two kids you take under your wing and teach them how to, do some poetry or something. You know what I mean? Teach them how to write things down and actually turn it into a poem. Those are the things that help, because it not only helped them come out of the shell of being timid and shy, it worked on their writing skills. It worked on their speech. It worked on their public speaking skills, because now you had to get up and perform this thing and present yourself to a group.
Yeah.
So it works on that. The confidence booster is nothing can nothing can top the confidence that you get from that, and how that translates into, oh, if I can do this, now I can do X, Y, and Z. We had a kid that stuttered really bad once. And this dude, by the time it was all over, did a song, you know what I mean, performed the song. He's going on to college, doing great, you know what I'm saying, and college.
Yeah.
But just the switch, turning on, and saying, you know what, I believe that I can do X, Y, and Z, and how that changes the trajectory, man. That was one of the things that really got me hooked, to being able to kind of give back on that side and share the creative side of things, and how it helped me.
Yeah.
Writing was my escape. That's the only reason I really got into music.
Yeah, that man, when I tell you, just showing kids that they matter, or even just allowing them to be creative, the way that just opens up confidence is just, it's surprising. Like, it's just knowing that somebody thinks that what you want to do or what you're doing matters. I went to a poetry thing, and there was a guy that he was talking about how when he was growing up, he was told, not really told that he couldn't do certain things, but it wasn't any kind of encouragement to do them. It was always that go to school, get a good job, whatever. But he said with his son, he always lets him explore his creativity. He encourages that. And being able to do that, like his son has done a lot of cool things because he gave him that freedom. And he said he often thinks about like, he does stuff now at our age, but he's like, what if he had that time in between? What if he was doing the things, and what if somebody had allowed him to do these things when he was younger?
Yeah.
Like, what more could he have done between then and now? So I think that's very important. Yeah, man, like I said, I'm looking in. I like the suggestion, maybe starting with 1 or 2
Yeah, man.
and then going from there, man. Yeah.
Cause they gonna take it and run with it, man. They
Yeah.
gonna take it and run with it. You turn that switch on and it's a wrap. The snitch I was telling you about, Bertrand,
Yeah.
he saw Will the real one at his school one day in North Miami. North Miami. He would sneak out of class to go to the event. I think he snuck out of class to go to the event, and that's kind of how his whole poetry thing. Obviously, he gonna tell the story a lot better than I'm giving it to you, but I'm giving you, a little snippet.
Yeah.
But it was him seeing that and the switch turning on. Never done it before, and now look at where, just that light has taken him.
Yep.
Major role and on the big screen, bro. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
You can't write that type of stuff, man.
Yeah, man. One more question before I let you get out of here. What's one thing about Lamar Jones that a lot of people may not know that you wish more people knew?
That I wish more people knew. That's a tough one, man. I don't think nobody ever asked me that question. That I wish people knew. Um,
I mean, it could be as deep as or as
yeah,
simple as you
you,
want.
you you know you got me. That's a great question, man. So something that I would want everybody to know is that they may not know is that I don't do this for me. None of this is even though I'm the face and I gotta be out there and I gotta promote the product. None of this is for me. I do this for one, when my son was born, that kind of changed everything. My son is 9. But prior to that, wanting to give kids some of the things that I didn't experience growing up. Like we're talking about flipping that switch,
Yeah.
having somebody actually believe in what you do, having somebody encourage you and encourage you to do better,
Yeah.
encourage you to dream because we don't see that in the hood. You know what I mean? Uh, I would say that that's probably one of the biggest things. If you don't know me, if you haven't met me, if you haven't seen me in person, doing a demo with the Jank or on the stage performing, uh, there's some the thing that drives me is that I'm able to do some of the things I've always wished I could. And it's one of those things where once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a kid tell you, you've changed my life in a sense, right? You can't unsee that type of stuff. You
Yeah.
can't unsee those moments where people, random people tell you, hey, you inspired me, right? So those type of things drive me and the one thing would be, yeah, understanding that I ain't doing this for me.
Man. Yeah. Let the people know how they can get in contact with you. You buy your barbecue sauce, your rub, where they can listen to your music, anything you want to share.
Like, okay. So we got to how much time we got? How much time we got?
However much time you need.
So, so going back to the conversation, man, it started with music. If you go on any online digital outlet, you can download any of listen to, stream, download any of my music. Lamar Jones, the last album I did was Lamar Jones 1981. Got a project we did called The Van Goghs. I got some singles out there. We just did an album called The Summer of Growth. Lamar Jones and Sean Elliott. So if you go on any online digital outlet, you can check me out. bbqjank.com is where you can find, the barbecue sauce. bbqjank.com. You know what I mean? We ship anywhere in the world. The Adventures of Sir Jankster. The book, Where You're From Is Not You, That's Just Where It Begins, is the premise of the story. That is available on Amazon as a soft cover, but through the website or directly through me, you do have hardcover books available. And follow me at BBQJank, Instagram. Uh, Facebook is also at BBQJank. Pretty much everything across the board. YouTube at BBQJank. LinkedIn, BBQJank. So any of those outlets, man, you can definitely find me. And if you happen to be in Texas in the HEB and I'm doing a demo, you might run into me there or a farmer's market or something around the way.
Man, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time out to come to the show and
Indeed.
sharing a
Appreciate
wealth of
you.
knowledge and your story. To my listeners, remember, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.